Okay, I'd like to call to order the regular board meeting of September 27, 2021 of the Board of Park Commissioners of the Lake Bluff Park District. Marcia, can I get a roll call, please?
Yes, Commissioner Beeler.
Yes, present.
Commissioner Lane.
Here.
Commissioner Raymore.
Here.
Commissioner Reeder.
Here.
Commissioner Walsh.
Here.
Commissioner Weber. And President Greenfield.
Here. Can I please get a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second. Marcia, roll call, please.
Okay. Commissioner Beeler.
Yes.
Commissioner Lane.
Yes.
Commissioner Raymore.
Yes.
Commissioner Reeder.
Yes.
Commissioner Walsh.
Yes.
President Greenfield.
Yes. Statement of visitors. Do we have any visitors who wish to make a statement? Okay, moving right along. Verbal communication, staff.
I think the only thing I had recently received a thank you from Mark Dewar regarding the 125th fireworks event that was held this past Saturday. Really turned out to be a great event for the evening and a nice location for this event, but he had sent an email and thanked the Park District staff, a lot of which, you know, the maintenance staff helped a lot of working with the setup and tear down and all of that. So we appreciate that effort. Jim was also involved, and myself and Noah, and some of the, you know, the fine tuning or planning, but worked out very well for that event.
Do we know how many people attended? Is there any way of knowing, having a count or an estimate?
I think I asked Jillian about that, and she was they were trying to estimate based on how many glow sticks they handed out, etc. But I haven't heard the final number. I don't know if Jim or Noah or anybody that attended wants to venture a guess, but it looked like it was probably more than 1,000.
Oh, I mean, when I saw it, it was just, you know, I just don't know how to estimate that, so I don't. It was nice. It was a nice turnout. Good. Good. Do we have any other staff reports that should be brought to our attention? Just everything here.
Yeah, I think everything is in the our reports are in the packet, so nothing extra.
Okay. Great. Finance Administration and Future Planning Committee. Scott is not here. Jennifer, is there anything from the committee that you want to report on?
We didn't hold any meetings, and other items are going to be addressed tonight.
Okay. Continuing with Jennifer, Parks and Beach Committee.
Same.
Same. Okay. Emily, Facilities and Programs Committee. Do you have
Also,
anything?
Nope, we didn't have any meetings either. No updates.
Nikki, Friends of Lake Bluff Parks.
Oh, yes. We had a meeting, you know, and I actually ended up having to leave that meeting early. They talked some about pickle. I'm trying to remember what else. I was so distracted. I had to be at another meeting at the same time. John, do you remember what? I can't even remember everything that was talked about at that. I had have notes somewhere. Let me.
Nikki, if you don't mind, I can jump in really quickly because I did talk to Katie Palvick today.
Okay.
Ribbon cutting, and I think the notices are up already. The ribbon cutting for the opening of the new pickleball courts, which looks absolutely great and are very absorbent, which is a very important thing with pickleball courts. That's going to be on October 9th. 9:30 in the morning, and then there's going to be a tournament directly afterwards. Hopefully more signs are going to go up to promote this, and it's $35, and there are different categories now of ranking for the pickleball folks, but it looks good.
Very good.
They also talked about the subcommittee, the fundraising subcommittee for the beach, and just a few of the other. I think they also highlighted the Sunrise Rocks 2 party that was held, and so again, thanks to Todd Porter and Susan Ryder for hosting that, another successful event. And then there was some additional talk about the prints and some of the other fundraising ideas.
Well, and I also voiced, and John, I don't know if they took it any further because it was right before I got off, but I also voiced concerns about, possibly spending that money, on the lower, area of, the steps down there. And they were saying that, they raised the money and, they'd work with us, but kind of that they got to choose where it went, right? Wasn't that kind of the message that you had, John?
That was, yeah, kind of yeah. But yeah, I think they also talked about, potentially meeting with, trying to put together a meeting and maybe talk to some of the park board members about that, how to move forward with the fundraising and the money that's raised for the beach.
Yeah, they're concerned about it just sitting in the bank, I think is their major thing. They said, it should be helping something. And if the other is a project that's way down the line, they don't love just letting it sit there. They feel like the people that donated will be frustrated.
We discussed it at a recent meeting. I don't remember exactly which meeting, but we discussed that point at a recent meeting. And I think the point may come up later today with this windscreen issue. I think, and maybe we need to talk about it a little bit further and can do that outside of the meeting. But I think there's an issue as to, the Friends of the Parks, are they here to raise money for projects that the park district deems important, or do they exist to do whatever they want to with the money they raise without regard to where we think that money should be spent?
I think it's somewhere in between the two is what they were thinking.
Yeah, and any of their, of course, their fundraising efforts have, are beneficial for our projects, such as the preschool playground this year and many of the other things. So we do appreciate
it's an interesting take, Nikki, as to whether it's somewhere in between. And I think, like I say, this came up in my discussions with others earlier, and I don't know that I want to devote a lot of time, because of the length of the meeting already, that I want to devote a lot of time tonight to that discussion. But I think it's something that we should all think about and think how we feel we should be approaching them and what the relationship should really be. And I don't know the legal structure and how it, they volunteer for that, correct? So that's an appointed committee?
Appointed, yeah, like it's not elected.
Right, by the board itself, votes on new ones. The commissioners can appoint one board member as a trustee, and then the Friends figure out the rest.
Okay, I would ask everyone to be thinking about that and kind of, put your thoughts in order in terms of what we think is the best way of working with the Friends and what we think that relationship should be. And then seeing how that matches their thinking and what we do about it, just so we understand. So if we can do that and then move along, because we do have a lot to cover. Commissioner comments, are there any comments? Commissioners? I hear none. President's report, I will not make any kind of report. We have the minutes, and we can do one motion for the minutes, correct? Can I please get a motion to approve the minutes, the August 16 special board meeting, August 23 regular board meeting, and September 13 special board meeting?
So moved.
Second,
Second.
Marcia, roll call, please.
Commissioner Beeler,
Yes.
Commissioner Lane,
Yes.
Commissioner Raymore,
Yes.
Commissioner Reader,
Yes.
Commissioner Walsh,
Yes.
President Greenfield.
Yes. Okay, the invoice schedule, excuse me, for ACH payments for August and the invoice schedule for the period ending August 24 to September 21. Does anyone have any questions about the invoices that were here? No questions or comments? All right, can I please get a motion then to approve both invoice schedules?
So moved.
Second.
Marcia, roll call, please.
Okay, Commissioner Beeler,
Yes.
Commissioner Lane,
Yes.
Commissioner Raymore,
Yes.
Commissioner Reader,
Yes.
Commissioner Walsh,
Yes.
President Greenfield.
Yes. Moving on to the year-to-date financial report. Josh, do you want to comment on this, please?
Yeah, so right now, year to date, the general fund is above budget by $149,000, mainly due to the property taxes. Currently, we received 58% of our levied taxes for 2020 tax levy. Year-to-date expenditures are under budget, 17,000 due to commodities being under budget, about 7,000 contractual services under 33,000, and personnel services 22, which is over budget mainly due to the beach staff. In the rec fund, year-to-date revenue is over budget $252,000. The increase of revenues mainly contributed to the rec programs, which is $157,000 over budget, the pool 63,000, and the admin is about $54,000. The year-to-date expenses are over budget 9,000 due to personnel services being over budget by 52, commodities under budget by $800, and contractual services under budget by 41, mainly due to timing. Does anyone have any questions?
Our contractual services, are those mainly also personnel costs?
No, those would be anything contracted out, I guess. Personnel would just be the staffing internally with the park district.
So what are those contractual services then that were under budget?
A lot of it is, you're looking at professional employee services, communication equipment, rentals, water, electric, gas.
So is that just a timing issue or?
A majority of it, I believe, is we are finishing up our projections. So this week, most likely. So we should have a better understanding of where we actually are or where we should be at the end of the year.
Right. Okay.
Josh, I had a quick question on page 33.
Mhm.
With the racket sports for the fees and admissions, and then you have the programs and lessons, and then you have it separated by tennis, paddle, and pickleball. Is there a reason why you don't separate it in the fees and admissions?
So in the fees and admissions, I believe that's just paddle.
Okay. Thanks.
All right, so when you catch up to the projections, we'll have a better feel because it seems the property taxes are well above.
Well, and the property taxes are so far above as well because of the, I think I have it in there. We received a large sum of, not a large sum, but a good sum of money, $72,000 from the 2019 tax levy, early in the year, where it was too late to move back to 2020. So there is that part of it too.
Okay. That'll be important. I mean, I know the budget for the year was not financially going to be great, but it'll help to have that, to get caught up on that projection for the end of the year, so we'll know where we stand. Does anybody else have any questions or comments related to the financial reports? Okay, can we please get a motion to accept the year-to-date financial report?
So moved.
Second,
Marcia, roll call, please.
Commissioner Beeler,
Yes.
Commissioner Lane,
yes.
Commissioner Raymore,
Yes.
Commissioner Reader,
Yes.
Commissioner Walsh,
Yes.
Commissioner Weber,
Yes.
President Greenfield.
Yes. Okay, purchase cards, ratification. Does anyone have any questions about the purchase cards? Can I then please get a motion to ratify the purchase cards for the period?
So moved.
Second,
Second,
Marcia, roll call, please.
Commissioner Beeler,
Yes.
Commissioner Lane,
yes.
Commissioner Raymore,
Yes.
Commissioner Reader,
Yes.
Commissioner Walsh,
Yes.
Commissioner Weber,
Yes.
President Greenfield.
Yes. Okay, now we get to the fun stuff. Pool leak report. John, would you take over?
Yes, so you see on page 42 of the packet, a brief memo. It outlines the two tests that were performed after closing the pool down, and that also includes, so the reports from those two contractors are in the packet, followed by some pictures that were taken. We have a lot more pictures and a lot of video if anybody's interested in seeing that. And as you can see, kind of both noted some different issues and leaks that need to be addressed. So I spoke with Ray Lee, who is an architect with FGM. He was involved in the 2014-15 work that was performed in the pool, and he's offered to come out and basically he and Rich Clark, who's with Innovative Aquatic Design, who's also familiar with our pool, they would come out together and after evaluating the two leak reports, kind of walk through the facility and see what kind of recommendation they may be able to give us at that time, and then if it warrants another study, whether it's a study on the facility itself and what can be done, or it's a plan to to do a renovation or a replacement. Unfortunately, it was not available until the week of the 4th to do that, but I think that would probably still be beneficial for us to have him come back out and give us his professional opinion based on these two studies, the results, and also some visual inspection that he would do when he visited our facility.
Are these leaks more or less what you expected, or was any, I mean, so far from what has been found that you can tell, is there anything surprising? Is there anything that is unexpected, either better or worse in these reports, do you think?
I'll let Mike comment on that with his experience with the pool. I would say some of it, you know, I mean, the main drain actually held pressure, so that was a pretty good sign that it's still intact. We haven't received any major leaks on that. The gutter system and the supply for that, there are, you know, cracks in that, and that doesn't, you know, as they noted in the one plan, that doesn't hold pressure, it loses it very quickly. Indicates there might be a little bit bigger leak somewhere, and they're not able to put a camera in those pipes because of the design, unfortunately. But that was one of the areas of concern. The liner as well is starting to open up. That surprised me a little bit because we just had the liner repaired before we opened this year, and it's only on its 6th season. Micah, what are your thoughts, or Noah, after looking at these two reports? Was there anything that surprised you, or?
No, from my perspective, I mean, John and I, we've talked about this a lot. I mean, we knew everybody was like really reflecting on the piping as part of this issue. So there's definitely concern there, and shows on the report. Probably the bigger concern, which was my concerns in looking at this report, which both reports reflect on, is this surge tank issue, which again, we didn't address a lot. We kept talking about the piping part of it, but the surge tank is a major component of the operations of this pool, and just how much is leaking. So according to both these reports, that the surge tank is our biggest issue going along with this, and I've discussed this with John, is something we should really look at, whether or not whatever other direction we go with this is to, you know, be concerned about that. So that's the one thing. Also, kind of the deterioration, which was very interesting to see, and you'll see in the report, there's a picture of that light niche, of how degrading the concrete is around the pool. It shows that one niche, which in that American Leak Detection, they're the ones that reported that they could not do anything with this one light fixture. And so when the pool was drained, I pulled it out and looked at it. And anyway, the structure itself, I mean, the degrading of the concrete was pretty severe around there, which means if it's around one of these light fixtures, it's probably the same around the rest of them. I told John, we got to look into a way that I got to replace and repair that light fixture. I won't do that until next season when we get underway. We have to discuss a way to get that repaired or fixed up somehow. Anyway, those are the two biggest things. So the surge tank and just the degradation of and we talked about that before, but showing these pictures and the area around the light fixture, it kind of proves it. So that's my input on that.
So the light niche that he's talking about, that's page 46 in the packet, just for your reference. And then probably 40 or 51, page 51 is one of the best pictures of the surge tank, where again, the original one started to fail many years ago. And so this, they brought in sheets of stainless steel and they were placed in there and then welded together once they were in place. And there seems to be cracks in a lot of those welds, which is losing a pretty significant amount of water. And again, as Mike has explained it before, that the surge tank is when you have 100 people get in the pool, the water's displaced, that has to go somewhere. So that fills up the surge tank. And then once they get out, it goes, it's pumped back into the pool so that you don't lose that water. But as it turns out, we are losing that water, a pretty significant amount of that water that goes in there. But yeah, that is one of the concerns, that there could be, you know, again, a major failure of that surge tank during operation. That would be difficult, and it would take some time to fix. probably a significant amount of time.
John,
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I have a question. Is the surge tank the same as the surge pit when you did that report of repairs that need to be done? Because you had it on like 2025 to 2025 to 2030 was the surge pit. Is the surge pit the same as a surge tank?
Yes, I think just different wording, but referring to the same.
And then when you did that outline, you said it was about 30 to 50K to get a new surge tank.
And that was, yeah, that was a rough estimate, but I know that Mike has actually been looking into some different alternatives to whether it's a fiberglass liner. Again, we're putting a liner, inside of a liner. It's already it has a stainless steel liner in that thing, but or whether you re-weld those welds or what other sort of ways there are to fix it. So I know that Mike has been sharing some information that has gotten so far, but
Can you, so was that pricing for a new surge tank or was it the 30 to 50K? I'm just curious on
that estimate. So what do you have, Mike? I know you had one that was about something like 32,000. I don't remember. Was that welding or what was that for that work? You're on mute.
You're on mute, Micah.
How about now?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, sorry. So the estimate that I gave John was, we have a couple options with this, and again, bringing in Ray and Rich Clark, who I've worked closely with. I know them very well. I've done years. They helped with a lot of our pool issues. They're familiar with it. I would kind of talk to them about what our options are with the surge tank. But the 30,000 part of it is that it's an option of putting in a fiberglass coating inside this surge tank. A company that's not here locally would have to come in, do a lot of prep work, and basically it's almost relining the walls with a fiberglass coating, which is supposed to be, they do that. And I sent John some pictures we could share with you later and stuff like that of how kind of this process works. But so that's the $30,000 there, which is doing that aspect. The only other aspect that I know of is one is this fiberglass coating, and then the other one is just going in and re-welding all the seams. And that's where these leak tests, that's what they've established, was the welds of these seams are degrading. Just remember, this surge tank was done in 2011, not during the referendum. So it's older, and it was an issue long before when Ron Salsky first came on board. I addressed it with him, and then we had some outside sources come in and look for ways to repair this. This is our second type of repair for this surge tank. The first one was a total failure, didn't work. So this worked for a temporary fix. And so now just doing the age and everything else, and also the groups that were doing these tests were inside this tank. And they shared with me the instability of this tank. About that, I won't go into this. This tank is considered a confined space, so we're not permitted to go in there without all this equipment. But anyway, I'm very familiar with the tank. I mean, I have seen it, have been in there during this confined space period. Anyway, and they both quoted to me that it's deteriorating greatly, much more than I have been, in the past. So that kind of explains it. So we got the welding of the seams as the possibility, or recoating with this fiberglass coating. And then I would talk to Ray and Rich and see if they have any other input on ways to save this tank.
Micah, can you just elaborate then? If there's a failure, what would that look like?
If there's a failure in this tank, we're done. Basically, let me share with you kind of quickly. I'll try to be as brief as possible. So this tank operates, it'll fill 100% up if the pump's not running. And when it runs down and runs with about only 3 feet of water in it. That's the operational level. And if the leaks are greater than holding that water in there at the 3-foot level, that means we will not be able to retain the water in there at that 3-foot level. And there'll be no water getting sucked through the pump system, which means the pump runs dry, no chlorination, no water, no circulation. So that's why I'm saying it's a major component for this. And so if the water is leaking out faster than we can maintain and sending the water to the pool, it's done. So that's
So-
the importance.
Can we get a new surge tank? Can we build a new surge tank?
Well, the only way, so that's what was done with this surge tank. The entrance to this surge tank is a very tight entrance. Those that took the pool walk through with me, you know, aware of it. It's not, we cannot take another surge tank and drop it in from above and just line this in. And that's what they did with this surge tank was they brought in 3x6 panels basically, and they had to slide them through a little slit. And then the welders were inside this tank and they were welding these panels together, the seams, and they just did that all the way around. If you look at those pictures, you can see some of those welds. There's a lot of them, and they're just all these panels. So that's the only way to repair this. So, or going in and doing this fiberglass coating, which somebody would go in there, they would do prep work on the walls, and then they paint on. There's some mesh screening. It's almost, if you guys were familiar or heard about how the pickleball courts were done, is that they put a mesh screening in. It's like fixing a boat side, or you know, the hole on a bolt or something. It's fiberglass mesh, and then they'll do the entire tank that way, and then they'll put on this fiberglass coat, and they'll put multiple layers onto it, so it'll have no seams, and it'll be one fluid container. I'm not totally sold that this is the way. It was something I looked into, which I've talked about that they do for oil tanks, water tanks, and other things. So it's something we just have to get a little bit more information on. I was trying to be creative and trying to find ways that we could save this tank. And the other one is, and that's where this one came in, was doing the stainless steel liner, which is, like I said, they did in 2011. They came in with the sheets and welded these together. So there's no way of doing something outside and dropping it right in.
So going back, Micah, when you said it, the pumps will go dry and so forth, what kind of indicator would you have if this is failing?
I won't know till it happens. I mean, basically, luckily I have safety measures on the pump system. So if there's not enough volume going through the pumps will automatically shut down, because it's all based on gallons per minute. And so we have safety measures, put in for that, for saving our pumps. And that's what would happen. So what would happen was I would get a notification. I do get some notifications through emails and stuff. That's how we're set up. It's great. But also, if I walked in and saw the pump wasn't running, I can go to a panel and it will tell me why the pump failed. And one of those would be a low flow. And the low flow can mean a lot of things, but it also could mean that there wasn't maintaining the water in the pit to be able to keep the water moving at the required weight by the Department of Health. We have a required weight for the volume of water that's going to the pool. So if it doesn't meet that demand, then it will shut down.
Do we know why the liner degraded so fast? Does that have to do with the condition of the concrete underneath it?
I'm going to answer that and say yes.
Okay.
That's part of the situation. You'll see some pictures in there too with like Noah walking on it. We already have this year, which was surprising to us. When we drained the pool this last time for this leak testing, we found an enormous amount of water underneath the liner. We're not sure, groundwater, or, I mean, that's where that was coming from.
Yeah.
But we had the problem with, and we're able to stop that. There's a plug in the bottom of the pool that we can open up the liner and the water comes out. But that water was coming from somewhere. So there's obviously some issues going on underneath the liner, which makes, puts pressure on the seams.
We had talked at the last meeting, we had talked about the pool and what we would do. And I think the agreement we came to was we wanted to better understand these reports and have a better understanding about where we really stand with the pool, what we absolutely need, what we might wait for, and so on before we make any long-term decisions. We won't have Ray doing this report until next week, presumably. And, we don't know exactly when he'll be done with it and when it will be ready for us. So I presume we can't go any further today than we did the last time. But I think this all gives us a better understanding of more of the issues with the pool. And if everyone is in agreement, then I would just wait until We have the report from Ray, which, you know, he kindly agreed to do for free. And that will give us some indication. I think we have to look at that and look at other things we've got before we can decide. But I think we can do that, and I think that will be very instructive. But these leak reports, you know, I think they were great to have, and will make a big difference. Does anyone else have any comments now or questions before we?
I do. Yeah, Paul, I would agree with you on the timing and the diligence that we still need to do, but also Sue Raymore and I were able to get a tour of the pool a week or so ago when we went in to review the finances with Josh, and Noah and Jim, and everyone just happened to be available. So that was lucky. But I do recommend if you get a chance to go and actually take a tour of the pool now that it's drained, so you can get even more educated on the leaking issues and get a tour of the surge pit, pump, all of that. It was really helpful for me to be able to visualize what was going on.
Agree.
That, you know, that would be something I've never done that, and that would be interesting to do, no question about it. With the empty pool, it looks.
Can we walk around inside the empty pool? Can we walk around inside the empty pool?
I want to make the comment. So at this time, though, due to the fact that the liners, so every year we refill, like I leave water in the pool every year, right? Because of the liner situation, and that keeps the weight down. So unfortunately, and for my, request with John, once they finished the pool leaks, I had to fill it up right away. Otherwise, we would have had more severe situations. I'll be glad to walk you through anything. I mean, the pump room is empty. The surge tank is visible. You can see that that's all empty. The pool itself does have, we keep about 3/4 of the pool filled to keep that liner down. Because if not, then it blows up on me, and then we have more severe situations. So you can see the light fixtures. It's below the light fixtures, so we can walk around. I can share with you that, but I just wanted to let you know if you go out there, that's the situation.
Micah, this is Sue. We talked, I think we said approximately 12,000 gallons a day we're losing. Are we losing that much now that you've got to keep the pool filled 3/4, or is that not the case?
No, so, we will find some loss. And actually, it was interesting to see last year that I've been doing this for years. You guys know that. I fill the pool up the same level every year. It helps maintain, stabilize the liner, as well as keeping the pool in the ground. Last year, we did lose water in the shallow area. It dropped all the way down to a substantial depth, that I noticed a substantial loss. And part of that we agreed, we talked about it, was due to the liner that was failing with the seams. So we had a company came out and re-seam all that. This year, I mean, right now the pool's been filled for the week. It's still at the level that I see. The surge tank is not filled with water, so we know, so we're not losing the water in there. I'm able to keep that isolated. That's part of the scenario. It's also not at the level of the light fixtures, so we're not losing it through the light fixtures. It's also not at the level of the gutter inline, which talks about the leaks in the gutter system. So there's a lot of areas. So we still may lose some water during this period. And most of that would be coming from down underneath the liner, and these seams, that are opened up.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, if that's all in the pool, so hopefully by the October board meeting, we'll have that report and we can get down to some of the nuts and bolts on that. That's great. Thank you very much. Moving on, the beach erosion grant. This is on page 53 of the packet. John, would you please go through this?
Sure. This was just regarding, there's a couple of different grants that are potentially would help with some of our erosion project, possibly even a combination of these grants. And from talking to Bill Bill Weaver with AECOM, they have people that within that agency that assist with grant writing. They said, possibly applying for both. might increase your chances. They said that this coming year is a pretty good year to be applying because this is, there's a fair amount of money that was allocated to this. This is money that's already in the system, not that infrastructure bill that's pending. But however, he did say, that his feeling is it's kind of a long shot to use, for our project. We're stressing the protection that it would provide, especially for the bluff, to help avoid a bluff failure. It would provide some additional protection for the water reclamation facility and then our recreational beaches. So it could take up to a year before you hear whether you would, whether you qualify or receive. And this is there's two levels. 75% matching grant is how it's advertised. But if you agree to put in 30% where they would fund 70%, that helps get you a few more points in the application process. So it's either 75-25 or 70-30. Bill thought the 70-30, would anything that would help our chances would be the best way to go. So he is currently assisting with the pre-application, which is due on September 30th. And so we will get that in and at least explore that avenue. There traditionally has not been much money available in the form of grants to help out with, breakwaters and revetments and some of the work we want to do here. There's been some money for more natural remedies, but not this type. So it's, I guess the important thing to mention is AECOM is not charging for this at this point. They're assisting with the grant application, pre-application, and they're not charging a fee. So we will put that in and see where it goes.
Do we know, do we have any idea what the pre-application process? So we can presumably be tossed out after that stage?
Yes, yeah. Well, then you're not hanging on the line waiting for a year to find out. I believe that applicants do get weeded out during that pre-application process.
So then it says, so maybe you said this and I missed it, the period of performance for these grants is 36 months from the award date.
Yes.
What does that mean? What does that mean exactly?
So once you're awarded the money, then you have 36 months to complete the work.
Okay.
And still that's kind of tricky because it can take 6 to 12 months for the permit process. With the Army Corps of Engineers and IDNR and IEPA. Although Bill said if we plan on doing the project, we could always apply for those permits ahead of time. You don't have to do if the funding didn't come through and you didn't do the work, it's okay. Although there's some fees associated with that, but you're not, you don't have to do the project if you're not awarded the funding or didn't find the funding through some other measure.
Thank you.
Now, has Bill, so you've got these funding caps in here. I'm looking at page 53. Has Bill yet given you an idea which funding cap we might fit under?
No, that was the tricky part because they might even be able to combine and apply for a couple of different programs. So he doesn't have a firm number, whether that's, again, if we had a $5 million project and it's 70 or 75% funding, that would the entire thing that's covered, or it's a lower portion. So it depends on the program, but he doesn't have a firm number for that yet.
So it's out there, but it's a rather iffy thing. I mean, it's not a high degree of certainty.
No, he did say he called it a long shot. So So I think it's certainly worth exploring, but I'm not sure. It doesn't sound like there's, a high probability that we would get it. So probably still be good to explore other avenues for funding this project.
What was the reason for it being a long shot?
Just the project itself, the type of project. A lot of things that they focus a lot of this money on is flooding mitigation projects for different communities, and so the fact that this one is basically, doing again breakwater revetment and groin improvements or building new ones, just doesn't. So it's not as good a fit for the grant. It could be covered, but it's just not as good a fit.
Basically, it just depends who else is applying. Like, we might fit if there aren't a lot of good people.
And one of the things they often look at with these grant programs is the community need. And that gets in a lot of different factors.
And can you expand on that?
It can be based on household income and demographics and some of those, and then the need, or whether, again, even the severity, if it's flooding, where we obviously have problems there, but somebody else has a different project and it's flooding houses or section of town or something like that, that might score more points in the process than our work would.
So John, the applications due, you said October 30th, and then the first cutoff is when? September 30th? Is that what you said?
September 30th.
Yeah.
So we'll find out if we're even in the running. When are you saying? Like after that?
I haven't received, I don't know for sure how long that pre-application process will take. So I have a contact there. I can talk to Bill, and then I have a contact with this program, and I can send them a note, an email, and ask them if they know that.
Any other questions on this? I mean, I think it's one, you go after the sources, you do what you can do. I think in this case, AECOM has been great in providing the help with the pre-application process for no payment. I would assume that if we get into an actual grant application, that generosity will not continue. But at that point, we make a decision and we run with it, or we decide not to. But okay, thank you. Dog beach study.
Okay, that one starts with a memo on page 54 in the packet. That study was delivered last week, and again, just I know not all the board members were on the board at the time, but this was kind of it was a smaller study, much less detailed than the study that was performed on the beach for the erosion project back in 2019. I believe that was about a $65,000 price for the work that was done at that time. Right. This was a $4,000 study where it really concentrated on the dog beach area, the debris that's migrated into that area, and how to work, in a debris management plan, how to remove it and deal with it. So you can see it as I just listed some of the costs of some of the options in that second paragraph. And again, in talking to Bill Weaver about this, you know, his feeling was that once that area exceeds capacity to accept any new debris, it will start to migrate past that towards our central or southern beaches. Some of this work was included in the expanded base option back in the 2019 study. He's fine-tuned those numbers a little bit and removed a few things like the wetland mitigation, which is not required any longer. And you can see in that just for that portion, I think it was $92,000, and reduce the contingency. But then you also had to add in the cost of doing the actual removal of the debris itself. So they're actually very close. The middle option is very close in price to what that option was back in 2019. So it's quite a bit to read through, and we just received that. I don't know if there's any questions at this point, or if you'd like to have more time to read that report and revisit the Dog Beach study.
Hey, John, in Drew's opinion, how much capacity does the Dog Beach have left? You know, from my understanding of all the beach things, that everything kind of flows from north to south, so the Dog Beach is always going to get the brunt of it. I just don't want to have a situation where it's like, all right, hey, we're going to clean up the Dog Beach aspect of it, and then we're still dealing with the same problem, you know, in perpetuity.
That's a good question. Bill felt that it is slowing down. You know, part of why it was accelerating was because of 4 years in a row of the high lake level, and then some of the bluff failures that have put more debris into the water. A large amount of that's been covered up with the property to the north and a couple of other properties that are doing projects north of that, that he felt is actually covering a lot of the debris as they're building. You know, the one just on the north end of our property built a brand new revetment. As you can see, it's a very large structure, and that's covered up a lot of the debris that was there. But you know, if we do the new proposed breakwaters that, you know, we're in a couple of these plans, then I felt that was going to really slow or potentially stop the debris from migrating. You know, definitely it wouldn't be at the same rate.
I have a question. Have we contacted the private residents who have beachfront property that are connected with Lakefront Beach to potentially, knowing that, you know, the entire ecosystem is connected and that whatever's happening at Lake Bluff Beach is probably going to be happening on those private residents' properties? Has there been any consideration in terms of reaching out to them, discussing potential projects with them, and more specifically funding for these projects?
Well, if we do go ahead with the project, and again, that will be something that we need to do to see how that would impact our neighbors down the line. But if we're talking about people who have private beaches, they clearly have their own financial concerns about the integrity of their own bluff and beach. So I don't know. We'll have to see as we go.
Yeah, I know funding is a major concern across the board for this. So knowing that those property owners probably would be willing to invest in any sort of projects that would protect their beaches as well. I just wanted to see if that was, you know, in the works at all.
Yeah, no, and Scott brought up a good point too. There's a wonderful, very demonstrative photo that was taken when they had the drone, drone that was out, drone and drawing. And it shows the migration of these rocks that are there currently in the North Beach on Dog Beach that are, with the movement of the water, moving down into the other beach coves. And Sue Raymore and I were down there the other day. I was also down there with Ann Ryder, and there's rebar that's now starting to move down and go into the other areas as well. So the question is, what kind of mitigation do we have to do?
Right.
Yeah, because we're going to have to do something to stop what's going to continue to happen. We've had 4 bad years of it, but we got bad stuff there that's going to continue to roll down. Sure.
Yep.
I mean, I have in reading this, one of the, concerns, or one of the questions that I think we have. So we've got this, what we call the Dog Beach, which I understand was a people beach until not that many years ago. And then they're also talking about the far North Beach, so beyond what is the Dog Beach. And my question is, what do we do? Can we sacrifice something in a sense, or do we want to sacrifice something? And can we sacrifice something that will protect the Central Beach and the South Beach? And is that practical to do? And I'm sure Bill has some ideas on this. Is it cleaning up the North Beach and then assuming that there will be less drift of this material? And that the North Beach, I don't know what he's getting at. Do we then leave the North Beach to accept this material that drifts in, even though there will be less of it, meaning it will last longer as a repository for this material? Or, how do we choose that kind of thing?
There are different, there are definitely going to be some different options. Bill mentioned, one of the things you could, as an annual maintenance, much like your sand nourishment program, you could budget some money to do some debris removal from that area by land every year and allocate, 10 or 20,000 to just removing some, and that all that does is open up the capacity for more to come in, but that again, it gets trapped in that area instead of moving further south. So
it sounds like we need to discuss this maybe a little bit further, and I think it'll probably go, hand in hand with, I think it's probably the next agenda item that we have to discuss. There's going to be lots of, I guess, cells and sections and things that we need to choose for, and it's like, where's our referendum money spent best?
Yeah, absolutely. And at some point, I would assume Bill would be happy to meet with us and go over some of these things in more detail. It's quite detailed, and looking at all the pictures and so on, it's kind of difficult to figure it out.
And 2,400 tons of rubble is an insane number.
And I can understand that beach can only take so much before it starts shoving it off into the Central Beach and then the South Beach. So, all right, if we want to move on then, and Scott, you're absolutely right. It's part and parcel with the beach options. I think a couple of things that I wanted to look at with the beach options as we prepare to move forward with decisions on this project. One of the points, which is not directly addressed on this memo, but I know a number of us have talked about it in the past, is do we want to proceed when we talk about working with an engineering company? Do we want to proceed with AECOM, which did the study in 2018, 2019, has continued to look at it, has continued to be involved with it. We've also had contact with another organization similar to AECOM. Would we want to open this up again to other proposals from other engineering firms to see what reaction we get? That the second firm did come with, and I think we all saw it, came with an informal report where they, I felt, basically reconfirmed what AECOM had given us, a few tweaks here and there. It didn't look to me, and I'm not the expert, but it didn't look to me like there was that much that they were adding. So I think one of the things that I would like us to agree on, and from a legal standpoint, we can do this, I understand, John, correct?
Yeah, I believe this is the type of professional services where you can select the one you want instead of having to go out to bid and choose the low bidder.
So does anyone have any thoughts? Do any of you have any thoughts on this process and how we should proceed with it?
So this is essentially asking for a vote of approval to advance with AECOM.
I think, I mean, some of us have discussed it, and I think AECOM has done a lot of work, and they certainly have the resume. I mean, it's not a fly-by-night company. They've done work with the village. And, you know, my position, frankly, would be to focus on AECOM, just agree that we're going to the extent that we do work, and that's another issue, that we work through AECOM and not look for other proposals or try to get other bids.
I think one important thing that I noticed with them, they just did the work for the North Shore Water Reclamation District, that revetment and groin work that was done. That was AECOM did that project. They also worked with the property owner. There's actually 3 property owners that are north of the Dog Beach area, and they work with 2 out of the 3 on their work there. So they're doing a lot of work in the area, and they definitely have a very good understanding of our beach and our issues here.
The estimate and proposal process is also pretty cost prohibitive to explore a lot of options, right? And timely.
Correct.
I'm almost going to ask it in another way. Is there anyone who has any misgivings or concerns about advancing with AECOM?
No.
Okay, can I get a motion, please, that to the extent that we proceed with the beach and bluff erosion protection project, that we work with AECOM as the engineering firm?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Marcia, roll call, please.
Commissioner Beeler,
Yes.
Commissioner Lane,
Yes.
Commissioner Raymore,
Yes.
Commissioner Reader,
Yes.
Commissioner Welsh,
Yes.
Commissioner Weber,
Yes.
President Greenfield.
Yes. Okay, thank you. When we look at the estimates, I mean, Scott, you brought up a critical point. As we proceed further down with this project, and you know, we've discussed it in the past. I think we've taken some informal votes in the past, and I think it's safe to say that we believe that we need to take some action regarding the erosion at the beach. I don't know that we have to make a decision on what we're going to do yet. But looking at these figures, I mean, do people have thoughts now as to what we might look at or might not look at with this?
I'm just going to say this is tip of the iceberg, because we also have the permitting. We also have, I believe there's some beach nourishment that's already built into the project, but, putting this out to the community and community surveys and community meetings and so forth, we're going to have a lot of add-on expenses to this. But I keep going back to the same thing. It's going to be what our community feels is critical for us to do in terms of the scope of the project ahead of us. Other than the pure option, I think we eliminated that one.
Yeah, the pure option we got rid of, right?
Yeah, I think there was, some good, not just, we don't want to add the extra spending, but I think there were some good reasons that I remember, right? Yeah, so for sure.
Okay. So of course we got rid of the cheapest option and kept all the expensive. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think when we had the study made, if you all remember, AECOM prepared kind of a list of priorities they gave us, and I think it was sent around before the last meeting, on what would be prioritized with this. Now, they used an algorithm of sorts. It was not formal. It was not, scientifically driven necessarily. It was more objective or subjective. Again, I think we need to look at, what we do with the North Beach. Now this is 1.6 million. Actually, the Dog Beach estimates then came in at 860 to about $1.5 million, depending on what we do, which is rather expensive when you compare it with Central Beach and South Beach. I think we have to, in being responsible and go into the community to the extent that we have to, at what point do we say, okay, South Beach was nice, but we're not going to do anything there? For example, I'm not suggesting it. I'm just, for instance. I think, again, we don't have to make any decisions tonight. That's not the point. But I think we have, Jennifer and I last week, if I'll interrupt, Jennifer and I were talking about the Dog Beach, because I'm talking to her on Zoom and she's got this big dog in the background. And so she's all for the Dog Beach and we don't have a dog. And so it's like, okay, all kidding aside, and if you've seen Jennifer's dog, she really needs a horse beach and not a dog beach.
And a big shower on the beach too, but I think I'm going back to Corey McKendry and asking her to fund that one.
Right. But I think we need to look at that, because we may need, and it may be something that I think it will be something that we'll have to bring up at the proper time with AECOM in terms of what makes sense from a community point of view. I mean, I know I presume the yacht club, for example, would not be happy if we, gave up on South Beach. Half of South Beach doesn't exist. If you look at the pictures, and I think in this Dog Beach study, there's some older pictures of the South Beach as well. And, that western portion of it, the further southwestern portion of the beach, more or less gone. But I think we have to look at those options and think about it. So when we come together in the coming period, we can decide what makes sense from the standpoint of recommending it to the community.
I will say, as a lifelong lake bluffer and a kayaker, you know, I've spent a lot of time on Lake Bluff Beach. I won't say my entire life, but a lot of time. And that North Beach is probably the most exposed portion of the beach. And I think the work that, let me just back up. Lake Michigan is notorious for shifting sands. One of the reasons why the Chicago River was reversed was because the entire mouth of the Chicago River was never permanent. It was constantly shifting and being blocked by sands, and they would always have to kind of dig it out and do these massive municipal processes. And that's one of the reasons why they reversed the Chicago River. I don't think that has changed at all for Lake Michigan. I also don't think that these storms are going to get any less. I noticed in this study that they are definitely citing, oh, when water levels reduce to a normal level, back to a normal level, then things will go like this. I personally don't think that's going to happen. I think we're going to see much more severe storms due to the fact that the climate is changing, right? Some people may believe that, some people don't. But I think if you have been down to those winter storms and you have spent a life watching those winter storms come in here in Lake Bluff, a lot of us know that they're going to get worse and worse and worse. And the far North Beach is the most exposed portion of Lake Bluff Beach. And it is probably the most important to protect the rest of the beach by building up kind of a protected area in that space. I don't think we need to say we're abandoning South Beach. We're prioritizing what needs to be done in order to protect Lake Bluff Beach by addressing the Dog Beach situation. That is just my 2 cents as a concerned citizen.
And you know, I agree. I think from an engineering point of view, we've got to know how do we protect the most that we can. But within that, there's also a realization that there's a limit as to how much we can, you know, as a community, how much we're ready to support. And we have to balance those two. And it's not easy. I mean, we heard at the last meeting what other communities have done and how it's helped and how it hasn't, you know, helped so much, where Highland Park still had a lot of damage, even after putting in $13 million into their project. So I think we've got to balance all those issues.
I think that's the biggest fear, is that we spend $8 million and then very next winter, it all gets washed away.
Right.
And those are very real concerns to have.
No, absolutely.
And, you know, as much as South Beach was washed away, I think South Beach continues to be the most popular beach down there right now. It is still very functional, especially as a boat launch, which is originally what it was intended to be. And there are there's plenty more beach space down there for beach goers to enjoy. Even though everybody loves going down to South Beach the most, which is weird to me. But.
Well, maybe we should charge a separate admission for South Beach. And they get the yacht club to pony up $1 million. We do it.
That's what
Now you're talking.
No problem.
Paul, was there a formal recommendation from there was a large resident committee, wasn't there, on the beach prior to Mike coming on the board?
There was an ad hoc committee that was comprised of village trustees, people in the community and so forth. Yes.
So do we need to make sure we look at that so we don't disenfranchise the people that were on that committee?
Yeah. The minutes from that are up on our website. So they're there. You know, drawing those people back in again would be a great idea, because they were obviously concerned folks from all walks of our village. So it would be good.
That committee also, Sue, it was really involved in trying to allocate expenses between the village, the park district, and the North Shore Water Reclamation District.
Okay.
And they came up with a recommendation that basically rationalized why the North Shore Water Reclamation District should pay about, if I remember correctly, $3.1 million of the total cost.
Okay.
And the North Shore Water Reclamation District promptly told us
No.
that we could take that ad hoc study, and I won't go further.
The verbiage is to go pound sand, I think is
Yes.
how I heard it. And literally in this case, go pound sand.
Okay.
So it was our attempt to say, and I wasn't on the committee, but I went to a couple of the meetings, and what everyone else was going in was saying that the North Shore Water Reclamation District had all this money. So let's find a way to rationalize why they should spend that money. And that approach didn't work, so.
Okay.
Good. If we can go on then to new business action items, and the first of which is community engagement consultant. Nikki has been working with John. Nikki had the very proper thought. We had talked to PCI earlier, and Scott and John and I had met Zoom meeting with PCI, which was one public relations firm that gets involved in referenda. Nikki very correctly said she really wanted to investigate other firms that had experience in that area and talk to them, which Nikki and John identified a company Beyond Your Base. We had the opportunity to Zoom meet with them last week. So Nikki, would you provide a summary of that, please? And we have the PCI proposal, and we have the Beyond Your Base proposal in the packet. So there's a lot of material there.
Yeah, for sure. This guy was great. He was very concerned with where PCI, and I wasn't there for that presentation, but from reading through their materials, they sound a little bit more like a traditional PR firm. This guy was definitely more focused on respecting the taxpayer and, understanding, when the appropriate time is to, launch a referendum, which elections, more people come out and vote in, which elections certain types of people come out and vote in. And it was really enlightening and interesting to me. He had a lot of great info. I think, Paul, John, and I were all impressed with, everything that he had to say. Let's see, I have some notes. He was saying, the other thing that was really interesting, and I think, who knows where we're at on all of it, but he was saying he highly recommended, on his own, going after the beach erosion alone in a referendum. I mean, he came out and said that, that if we go for a referendum, he thought it would be much more likely to be approved if it was just beach erosion. He said he thought, it would divide too many people to add anything with the pool. If I had any reservations about him, he sounded like he was highly busy. He actually gave us a lower overall bid than he would have otherwise. He said he didn't say he didn't have enough time, but he said he was, had a lot of clients. And so his fees were lower than they would normally be. I think his estimate was $36,000 for ours. And he said normally he would charge $45,000 to $75,000 for the same type of job. He was talking about obviously the, June versus November election. He said in his overall experience, the November election he has found is better for referendums. However, he was unsure with this one because summer and beach. And so it was interesting. We got into a lot of deep stuff. It was a long presentation, but, well worth our while.
I would reiterate everything Nikki said. I think we were all really impressed with him. And he gave us a very good schedule as to how and when we would be preparing this work. So it was really set up on every 2 or 3 months, what needed to be done so that we would be ready for a referendum. And a lot of the work, I guess, we would have to actually submit the referendum question to the county to have it on the ballot 3 months prior to the election. So before that, you're not committed to any number. You're not committed to doing anything, basically. But it was a process, going through a very concrete process of determining what the community wants, how we can approach the community, and who we have to approach. He had a more, as Nikki was saying, a more specific, these are your voters. So make your presentation to those voters. Tailor it to the people who are going to be voting. And I thought it was a much different, much more pinpointed approach. Nikki, would you say?
For sure. The other thing I forgot, Paul, that I thought was interesting that he said is he likes to do a mail survey at the very start of it to, really get a gauge on if people would go for this referendum. So even before we would submit the referendum question, he would do a survey to see, if this is worth going after or not.
I thought that was a really good approach.
Yeah. And he specifically said he liked doing mailings because when people have a letter, I mean, in this day and age, everything is email. But he said there's more engagement if you receive the letter and you've got that piece of paper in front of you. And I think there'd obviously be some things electronically, but he had was a very interesting approach.
We're assuming that no millennials live in Lake Bluff.
I think we probably have to do something for them as well, Jennifer.
We'll just do some.
I'm the closest one you have to a millennial, and I throw out mail just as quickly as I delete email. So I don't know if that really holds water. However, after listening to this, this approach seems better than the presentation that Paul and I sat in on. So I think if you guys are all on board, sounds like a winner.
Good. If we have no more questions on this, I would ask for a motion to approve Beyond Your Base, assuming we proceed with this project.
So moved. Oh, sorry.
That's fine. Second?
Wait, hold on for a second. I'm still a little confused why he gave us a lower bid.
Pardon?
He was
I'm still a
saying,
little confused.
yeah, it was due to their capacity to take on new work, as Nikki indicated, Commissioner Walsh indicated they're very busy working on referendum consulting for both June and November elections. So they won't be able to spend as much time as they would, but he felt that for this fee and for our community, they could still do a good job. And so it could be fortunate for us that it would be less money.
And the other thing that, we could leave open too, it wasn't like, we didn't like PCI, we could hire them for just the social media portion too, and still be saving money and have, the experts helping us with, the election and the voter base and everything that they know about, and PCI that's more of a traditional PR firm helping us with what they know best about.
Okay, can I have a second?
Okay.
Second, Beeler.
Marcia, roll call, please.
Commissioner Beeler,
Yes.
Commissioner Lane,
Yes.
Commissioner Raymore,
Yes.
Commissioner Reader,
Yes.
Commissioner Walsh,
Yes.
Commissioner Weber. You're on mute. You're on mute, Scott.
Yes.
And President Greenfield.
Yes. Okay, good. Next point. We had aimed at making a decision by this meeting on whether we would proceed with planning for a referendum. As we've gone over this, obviously these are very complex issues and they will continue to take time. But for a number of reasons, well, obviously from a timing point of view, if we want to accomplish our goals in helping the community, then we need to get moving. We need to actually hire beyond your base while they still have the ability to give us their services. I believe it's right to proceed with the planning for a referendum. This is not putting any dollar figure on a referendum. It's not putting a final question down. It is preparing with the planning, proceeding with the planning so that we can, as we see fit in the coming months, make it the final decision and put a referendum before the community if that's what we decide. So I would ask for a motion to proceed with planning for a referendum to raise funding for the beach/Bluff Erosion Protection Project and to hire Beyond Your Base as our community engagement consultant for this planning process.
Actually, if I could, Paul, I'd like to make the motion, but I'd like to make it more expansive because I don't want the referendum to be seen as our only possible source of funding. We already talked about grants and other things too. So I would make that motion, but I would expand it to say that referendum and all other possible available sources of funding to be able to address this project.
I think that's fine. That is a motion, Jennifer?
That would be my motion, yes.
Can I get a second?
I'll second it.
Marcia, roll call, please.
Commissioner Beeler,
Yes.
Commissioner Lane,
Yes.
Commissioner Raymore,
Yes.
Commissioner Reader,
Yes.
Commissioner Walsh,
Yes.
Commissioner Weber,
Yes.
President Greenfield.
Yes. Okay, so the R word is out there, folks. So we will do that. So, John, we then have a letter of engagement from Beyond Your Base. And I don't know if you sign that or if I sign that.
You would sign that.
Thanks. Let's prepare that and I will come over and I will sign that.
Okay.
And we'll get that out. Very good. Next item, Windscreen sponsors. Nikki, do you want the intermission now or do you want to?
You can pick.
Okay, 107 Windscreen sponsors. John, do you want to go over this,
Yes.
please?
Sure, I'll be very brief. The concept or the discussion about this came up during one of the Friends meeting, I believe. They were talking about they've committed to split the cost of the project of resurfacing the pickleball courts, looking at different ways to raise money. They were talking about selling bricks, in a small area by pickleball court. These tournaments, such as the one that's coming up on October 9th. And so this just came up as a part of that discussion. So it's doing windscreen for pickleball. It is affected more by wind than paddle or than tennis, and then those sports because those are heavier balls. This is a light plastic ball, so it is affected much more. So it would it enhance the play on the on the courts, but then you also have, if you do sponsor logos on there, the potential to raise money and do some fundraising to help pay for that portion. There was some discussion that with past boards, there wasn't necessarily a comfort level with having sponsorship, displayed in different areas of the parks or the facilities. So basically, as a first step, we wanted to bring this to the board to check with the concept of it before really anything is, before it goes any further, the discussion.
I spoke with John about this morning, and my take, and I appreciate everyone making comments to the extent you wish. I personally don't like the idea of putting advertising around the park district. Frankly, I think the whole windscreen stuff, I mean, if you're going to be outdoors, then just play outdoors. But I think number one, the Friends has committed. Number one, I don't like the idea of advertising on the park district property. I think it's one thing, very often you have in a golf clubhouse, you'll have Titleist put a sign up and some advertising, but in exchange, they'll provide some things for you. If you're getting something on a regular basis in an appropriate area, it might be okay. I don't know who Frenchman's Creek Beach and Country Club is, but that's irrelevant. But the idea that we have something like that, I don't really like for park district property. I also think the Friends has made a commitment to pay for $40,000 of the $80,000 renovation to the pickleball courts. And I think it would behoove them to focus their fundraising efforts on paying us the money that they've committed to pay us, rather than look at other schemes and other fundraising and other projects before that $40,000 is paid off.
Would this be an annual advertising revenue generating project, or a one-time pay this fee and we'll put it up forever?
So I appreciate your question. Just as a reminder, that for the format of the meeting, this is for park commissioners and then staff and visitors if they're called on by the commissioners or the board president. But it's a good question. It hasn't been worked out yet. That's that's something that would be explored if again, it's just the conceptual stage here where you either are interested or are not interested in going further with the windscreens and the fundraising part of that, the logos. This is something that could be done a year from now. It's not it's not really pressing. It's just an idea that came up, and we felt that it was important to bring the idea first to the board here to discuss before it really goes any further.
Hey, Paul, what is your big, I guess, why don't you think this is a good idea? Besides, like, what's wrong with advertising? Provided that, it doesn't look like a NASCAR car, right? If it's targeted, no, I'm serious. If it's targeted and small, and I can envision a scenario, I'm just looking at windscreens online. It's like, I can envision a scenario where it's like Lake Bluff Park District and then sponsor, right? And then it says us, but also the sponsor as well. I guess I'm just trying to figure out what your reservation is with this.
Well, I don't know. It's to me, if you look at sponsorship, so if you have, we talked about this when we were working on the golf clubhouse, for example, that could we get, and the Community Golf Association raised a lot of money for that, but there was talk of further money being raised if you get, a name sponsor for the clubhouse, that they're putting in, a fairly substantial payment on an annual basis, that you do something like that. And this to me sounds more like just advertising where you're going to change the sign. You know, every 3 months, somebody pays you a few $100s and every 3 months you change the sign. And I'm not sure in a public setting that that's really what we ought to be doing. I think if we
Sure,
name
but we
something,
can-
if somebody steps up and gives us $3 million for a pool and wants their name on it, fair enough, you put their name on it.
Yeah, I guess I just don't see the harm in looking into something like this. I mean, we do have full say over, you know, what the advertisement is, how big it is, where it's located, things like that. I don't really think we should be saying no to something like this, especially when it brings in some revenue.
Yeah. I'll just say, consider folks, when we've done things before in the past with t-shirts, we do put logos of all the different sponsors on the back of the t-shirt. So you're getting something that says, you know, like Bluff Run the Course or like Bluff Pickleball or something. So you've got everybody with their logos affiliated with that. But on a more humorous note, there are 6 divorce forms in Lake Bluff and Lake Forest. So we could pretty much cover every single windshield.
I kind of like, this is, maybe I'm weird, but like the back of the t-shirt look and all that, like, I think it kind of legitimizes it too. And if we had, you know, I don't know what kind of sponsors we'd get, and obviously we'd have the, you know, right of refusal on any sponsor we didn't want, but I don't know why we would turn away free money for just, you know, a few ads on a windscreen.
The printing would be on the inside of the court, so it would not be on the outside facing.
What would the cost be for putting up these windscreens?
Really not put any much work into the research. We just, you know, wanted to kind of start with a yes or no to proceed. If there is some interest, then would be happy to, you know, to look at what those options are, what the costs are, and some of the, again, the financing option, whether it's, you know.
John, was this request made to help the Friends meet their 40,000 obligation to the pickleball courts?
It came up as part
Or
of
was
that
it strictly-
discussion.
Pardon?
Yes, it came up as part of that
Okay.
discussion and looking
Okay.
at different
Okay.
fundraising options, so.
Okay.
They just really want us to say on the concept of whether this would be something that we would approve of or not approve of.
Yeah, I feel like this is crossing a line of like what the Friends goal is, which is fundraising versus, and we talked about this on our committee of sponsorship. And I think this really falls under Lake Bluff Park District and not fundraising. So this is where I have an issue of like, this is, and it was a great point that McCain brought up, was that, is this going to be a source of revenue continuously? So again, it's a sponsorship, which falls under the Park District, what we talked about during the committee meetings, versus a fundraising aspect. So I'm not understanding this whole project in the way that it's falling under the Friends of Foundation.
It's certainly not the standard way we look at fundraising. You're right, Emily. All right, well, I don't know how we want to proceed on this. I mean, there's some people in favor of looking into this. I think Emily's point on if it's advertising, then it should be a Park District function and not a Friends function. I really feel the Friends need to focus on the 40 grand that they owe us. And not look at extraneous things that, you know, are nice. The windscreens did not come up when we talked about building the pickleball courts. And so now all of a sudden you need windscreens, you know, I mean, we're paying $80,000 for the court and then we're told we need whatever, another 10,000, 20,000, whatever it's going to be for windscreens. So
I think the concept was to, and again, Nikki, please jump in if you understand differently, but when I spoke to Katie Pavlik today, the thought was this would be a form of fundraising rather than sponsorship to meet their obligation. So, but again, the thought is there is to, you know, do you change these out? How much do you charge? Obviously, they would be asking for money in surplus of what the cost of the sign would be to help contribute to the fundraising that they're supposed to do, or they've been charging themselves to do.
well, I think, again, we get into a question of the Friends of Lake Bluff Parks and what their role is and what their role isn't.
Yeah.
Is there, and I think it kind of fits in all together. Is there I mean, how would we look at this? Emily, do you think your committee should look at this along with Nikki in terms of starting a discussion on the role of the Friends of Lake Bluff Parks? Should we put together an ad hoc committee? I mean, what do people think?
I keep thinking back to the beginning comments about how the Friends wanted to finish off those stairs because they wanted to spend that money. And now they're, on the other hand, they're asking for us to be a fundraiser for them by advertising. I guess I'm a little disconnected. It sounds like this is a bigger thing than just a one-time event. So I guess I'd be in favor of maybe spending a little bit more trying to understand the strategy.
How should we appoint an ad hoc committee or do we want it within one of the existing committees?
I mean, Anne and Sue are on the Facilities and Programs Committee. Do you think this fits under? I mean, it seems like
I'm not so sure it fits under our committee. It
Yeah.
feels like maybe an ad hoc committee would be more appropriate.
Or is it a bigger conversation, a topic with the Friends, with the board members and the Friends to just kind of feel this out in a general sense, not necessarily related to the screens?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it was part of the strategic plan. If you look at our strategic plan, it just ended in 2019. There's a strategic plan, and it has goals, and we're supposed to make goals for the Friends of Foundation. It's in there. John, if you pull it up, the strategic plan, it was done by the company from 2015 to 2019. There's specific goals in there. And it states that the board is supposed to come up with goals for the Friends of Foundation. And so, then 2020 was COVID. And then it's kind of, I think we need some goals there too. Just like we gave John goals, I think there needs to be some goals for the Friends of Foundation. So I don't know if it's Paul talking to John Hirsch, or if that seems to me like would be the best way to go to it, because John's the president of the Friends of Foundation and Paul's the president of our board. So maybe start there. What do you guys think?
I think that makes
That's
sense.
just an idea.
I think that makes sense. I do think there needs to be a larger conversation because I think, having gone to both meetings, I feel like there's some disconnects.
That makes sense to me too. This is Amy.
All right, so you all want me to go to John Hirsch and start a conversation? Is that I'm trying to figure this out.
Yeah, I mean,
I like
pull up
John.
the
John's a nice
strategic
guy.
plan. Yeah, I think so. I think it would be great. I
Okay.
vote Paul.
All right, then I will do that, but I think we will end up following up with an ad hoc committee to look at this. And I'm not trying to over committeize this question, but I think we need, when there are some principal questions like this, I think it's up to the board. Ultimately, it's going to be up to the board to decide how we want to push the Friends to proceed. So I will get in touch with John and I'll start the conversation and then we'll proceed from there.
Thank you,
Okay.
Paul.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
Sounds great.
Okay, John, golf carts, sale of golf carts, making money. We like that.
Yes, so on page 108, as we proceed through the packet here, you'll see a memo that kind of outlines the sale itself. So just as a reminder, how this come about, Paul Visions has approached Park District back in February, asking about purchasing the cards from us to trade those in. And at that time, they were also asking about extending, having it included with extending the license agreement. They then decided that the carts will be fine to use for another season. And then more recently, they have, when we were talking about some of the capital needs for the upcoming years for the golf course, they brought up the idea of purchasing those. There's been no discussion or about the license, about extending the license agreement. So that's not part of the deal. This is just us selling them the carts that you can read in there. Of the 30 of those are older carts, 10 of which are not operating. The other 20 don't have a lot of value. Those are 2009 carts. And then the newer ones, 2015 carts, there's 40 of those. So the new lease, we would be selling those. The sale would bring in enough money to pay off the approximately $23,000 that's owed on the loan for purchasing those carts, the most recent 40 carts, plus reimbursing the Park District for some of the depreciated value of those carts. And so then they would trade those in. Golf Visions would then start a new lease in their name, and that would put new carts on the course, which I think would be beneficial. Plus, as these carts get older, it gets more difficult for us to do something with those, depending on their, depreciated value. So I think that this is a pretty good option for the Park District.
Comments, questions? Can I then please get a motion to approve ordinance 2021/B, authorizing a contract for the sale of golf carts to Golf Visions Management, Inc.?
So moved.
Second.
Marcia, roll call, please.
Commissioner Beeler,
Yes.
Commissioner Lane,
Yes.
Commissioner Raymond,
Yes.
Yes.
Commissioner Reader,
Yes.
Commissioner Walsh,
Yes.
Commissioner Weber,
Yes.
President Greenfield.
Yes. Okay. Ordinance 2021-C, declaration of surplus personal property and authorization for sale, trade-in, or disposal. Do we need any discussion on this?
It's simply getting rid of 2 old paddle cord heaters to see if there's some value that have been replaced. We won't be using those, and the same with the rototiller. So it's just declaring those as surplus so that we can put them on an auction site and try to sell and get some revenue.
Can I please get a motion to approve ordinance 2021-C, declaration of surplus personal property and authorization for sale, trade-in, or disposal?
So
So
moved.
moved.
Second.
Marcia, roll call, please.
Walsh and Raymore. Okay. Commissioner Beeler,
Yes.
Commissioner Lane,
Yes.
Commissioner Raymore,
Yes.
Commissioner Reader,
Yes.
Commissioner Welsh,
Yes.
Commissioner Weber,
Yes.
President Greenfield.
Yes. Okay, memorial donation pricing structure. John, do you want to go over this, please?
Sure. We have staff, primarily Noah, Jim, and Josh and myself have reviewed and updated this. My understanding it's been a number of years since it's been changed or updated, the fees. And Noah, why don't you tell them a little bit about why we felt these fee increases were needed.
Certainly. So since this last time it was updated, which was a couple of years ago, prices have increased on commodities, particularly the memorial benches themselves. And at the price point we were at, we were either break even or in some cases losing money just based off the price of the bench, and the installation cost for manpower. So we wanted to update accordingly. Also, it takes into account any sort of minor endowment, just in case a piece of property like the bench is damaged due to vandalism or act of nature. So there's some money in an account to help cover the costs of repairs, so that less comes out of district pocket.
So, and then we are proposing that we would get rid of a few of those items that really just aren't purchased. So it would just be the bench, memorial tree on a memorial picnic table.
Okay, any questions or comments on this? Can I please get a motion to approve the new memorial donation form and pricing structure as recommended by staff?
So moved.
Second.
Marcia, roll call, please.
Commissioner Beeler,
You're on mute, Jennifer.
Sorry, my space bar didn't work. Yes.
Commissioner Lane,
Yes.
Commissioner Raymore,
Yes.
Commissioner Reader,
Yes.
Walsh,
Yes.
Commissioner Weber,
Yes.
President Greenfield.
Yes. Okay, native/demo garden location approval. We discussed this at the August meeting. Does anyone have any questions or comments on this? I think the location has been fixed. Okay, can I please get a motion to approve the native demo garden at our teaching park?
So moved. Beeler.
Second, Walsh.
Marcia, roll call, please.
Commissioner Beeler,
Yes.
Commissioner Lane,
Yes.
Commissioner Raymore,
Yes.
Commissioner Reader,
Yes.
Commissioner Walsh,
Yes.
Commissioner Weber,
Yes.
President Greenfield.
Yes. 2022 medical, dental, and vision insurance. John?
Sure. So we're part of the co-op with the village and the library for our benefits. We received word on Friday, so I apologize for the short amount of time that we have to go over this, but of what the rates, the new rates were, and the enrollment begins on October 18th, which is the day of our next meeting. So that's why we had to kind of rush and get it in for this meeting. I put the numbers in there just, as a nutshell. It's a 2% increase for the PPO. There's no increase for the HMO, and there's a decrease of 5% for the dental. I forgot to note that the vision, there was actually an increase for individual, a decrease for family. We currently have 4 that are on employees that are on the individual and 5 that are on the family. So for the 5, there's a 9% increase for individual, 9% decrease for family. So it's really kind of a wash. That one won't cost the park district really much at all. It would kind of wash out, but that's included in those rates. So we were hoping that if the board would approve this evening, that we can then disperse that information to the employees so they have that time to consider the information before the open enrollment begins. We do have our HR generalist, Tina Brewer, here this evening too, who could answer some questions if you have them.
So Tina, this year we're passing the increase along to employees as we always had prior to last year, correct?
I honestly don't know what happened prior to last year, so I don't feel like I can answer that properly. Sorry. But yeah, last year we, the park district absorbed the cost. And last year, the increase was approximately 6% for PPO, where this year it's 2%. So,
And last year there was a special, it was a special situation because with COVID and Ron Stalsky leaving and all these other things going on, there were not, bonuses were not given to employees.
correct.
And
That
so
is correct.
specifically done as some compensation. Okay.
Yeah,
Yes.
right. There were no salary increases, so. the
That's not the
increase-
case this year.
That's not the case. What we did in January, we did salary increases that the board approved.
All right. Are there any questions or comments on this, please? Can I then get a motion to approve the 2022 medical, dental, and vision insurance rates for employees?
So moved. Second.
Scott moved, I'll second, Beeler.
Marcia, roll call, please.
Beeler. Commissioner Beeler,
Yes.
Commissioner Lane,
Yes.
Commissioner Raymore,
Yes.
Commissioner Reader,
Yes.
Commissioner Walsh,
Yes.
Commissioner Weber,
Yes.
President Greenfield.
Yes. Do we have any community comments? John, did anything come in?
No.
Other than the compliments for the 125th anniversary party, 125th plus one anniversary party, and the great job that the Park District did in helping to host that. Correspondence that we need to?
No, we don't have anything this evening.
Okay, then we will go into executive session. And we should all have the Zoom, the board members should all have the Zoom information for that. So we leave this meeting, we go to the board members go to the executive session meeting. And then we will go back to the regular meeting when we're done.
Yes, and I think it's just, we can note that there won't be, after we come back in to the meeting, I don't believe we will need any of the staff to come back other than Martha and Jeff. So I think the rest of the staff will not need to log back in for the end of the meeting.
Now, do we need the motion to go into executive session now?
Yes.
So moved.
Second.
Lane and who seconded?
Sue?
Sue. Okay.
Marcia, roll call, please.
Commissioner Beeler,
Yes.
Commissioner Lane,
Yes.
Commissioner Raymore,
Yes.
Commissioner Reader,
Yes.
Commissioner Walsh,
Yes.
Commissioner Weber,
Yes.
President Greenfield.
Yes.
8:29.
All right, so we will see each other, the board members, in executive session.
We're here.
Okay. Can I please have a motion to approve what? Can we go over this wording again, please, Marcia?
To approve the executive director's compensation and contract.
So moved.
Second.
Please. Second, Walsh. Marcia, roll call, please.
Commissioner Beeler,
Yes.
Commissioner Lane,
Yes.
Commissioner Raymore,
Yes.
Commissioner Reader,
Yes.
Commissioner Walsh,
Yes.
Commissioner Weber,
Yes.
President Greenfield.
Yes. Excellent, thank you. Can I please get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Marcia, roll call, please.
Commissioner Beeler,
Yes.
Commissioner Lane,
Yes.
Commissioner Raymore,
Yes.
Commissioner Reader,
Yes.
Commissioner Walsh,
Oh, yes.
Commissioner Weber,
Yes.
and President Greenfield.
Yes.